Come closer. The shadows have missed you, and tonight they have a new story to tell. Welcome to Scary Stories After Dark. The stalks whispered like dry bones rubbing together. The October wind pushed through them in heavy breaths, carrying the coppery tang of blood. A boy no older than 19 stumbled into the clearing, gasping, his sneakers slipping in the mud. His flannel shirt was ripped wide at the shoulder, his pale skin slick with sweat. Behind him, something grunted, not human, a heavy snort that rattled like a hog in its pen, but deeper, meaner. He turned, eyes wide in the crimson twilight. The corn swayed as if alive, parting to reveal shapes. Broad shoulders, thick legs. Masks. At least that's what he told himself. They're masks. It's all just a show. It has to be. Then he saw the fence. Dolls. Dozens of baby dolls strung up on wire, their eyeless faces catching the dying light. Some hung by their necks, some nailed by their tiny plastic arms. A grotesque welcome sign. The boy reached for it, half sobbing as if plastic and wire could protect him. That's when the first figure stepped out. A Goatman, long curling horns casting jagged shadows across the red sky. Its wool-matted head twitched, sniffing, before lowering in a slow, deliberate bow. A lantern swung from its clawed hand. The flame glowed orange against the creature's torn suit. The boy screamed as the corn split behind him. Pig snorts thundered closer. The last thing he saw was the Goatman lifting its head, eyes empty sockets of black before the lantern light vanished. Darkness. Cassette tapes rattled in the glove box. The cut was so sharp it jolted. Now it was 5 friends packed into an old Chevy, headlights spilling over winding back roads. Zane, Franklin, and Drake in the front and back seats, Sloan and Anne pressed together in the back, all of them laughing too loud, their words half swallowed by Pearl Jam thundering from the speakers. "It's this way, I swear," Zane insisted, waving the crumpled flyer he'd picked up from some gas station corkboard. "Says best haunted hayride in the county. People say it's like legit terrifying." "Legit terrifying?" Sloan smirked, sipping from a gas station cup of flat Coke. "Or like some guy with a pillowcase on his head chasing us with a chainsaw?" "Either way," Franklin drawled from the passenger seat. "Some inbred farmer's gonna eat us. 5 dumb kids. Perfect recipe." Anne nudged Sloan with her elbow, both girls laughing nervously. Drake was filming everything on his chunky camcorder, occasionally shoving the lens into someone's face. "This is gold," he grinned. 30 years from now, people will watch this tape and say, "Damn, they didn't know what was coming." The Chevy turned down a dirt road. The sky deepened into a bruised red. The trees thinned into endless corn. And there it was, looming ahead, lit only by a crooked lantern on a post, a wire fence, dolls hanging lifeless and broken, their hollow eyes staring at the headlights. The laughter quieted. "Okay," Sloan whispered, "that's actually messed up." "Props," Zane said quickly, trying to keep his voice steady. "Creepy, authentic props." But the unease settled over them like a fog. The doll's shadows stretched long across the mud. Beyond the fence, the corn swayed as if something enormous moved through it. They were here. the Chevy crunched to a stop on gravel that looked like it hadn't seen a car in years. Dust lifted into the red twilight, settling across the dolls strung along the fence. Their little plastic heads turned ever so slightly in the wind, clicking against each other like teeth chattering. No sign, no ticket booth, no wagons stacked with hay. Just the farm. "This is it?" Anne asked, her voice thin. "Guess so," Zane muttered, climbing out. He tried to slam the door like he wasn't unsettled, but his eyes kept darting to the dolls. Franklin stretched, cracking his neck, smirking. "Man, these people know how to set the mood. Gotta give 'em that." Sloane lingered at the car, hugging her arms. The red sky was unnatural, too dark for dusk, too light for night, and there was no sound, no crickets, no owls, just the whisper of the corn. Drake was already filming, panning over the fence. "This is insane," he whispered through the camcorder mic. "Like, seriously, best haunted house vibes ever. $10 says some guy jumps out right now." As if on cue, the corn parted. A massive shape lumbered out, broad shoulders, mud-caked overalls, a head too large, too pink, snout curling upward, a pigman. "Holy," Franklin muttered, eyes widening. Then he laughed, forcing it. "All right, yeah, I'm impressed. That's a killer mask." Zane grinned nervously and stepped forward, raising a hand for a high five. "Yo, man, solid costume." The pigman stopped a foot away. Its chest rose and fell. Hot, wet breath wheezed from its nostrils. The stench, like blood and rotting hay, rolled over them. "Okay," Zane chuckled, lowering his hand. "Guess he's method acting. Respect." The thing didn't move, didn't blink, just stood there, breathing. "Dude," Sloane whispered, tugging Anne's sleeve. Then, without warning, the pigman lifted a massive cleaver from its side. The blade dripped dark onto the dirt. It raised it slowly, deliberately, until the steel gleamed in the dying light. The friends froze. "Props don't breathe," Anne whispered, barely audible. The pigman tilted its head, the snort rattling deep in its throat. Then it turned and walked back into the corn, vanishing in a ripple of stalks. The silence that followed was heavier than the sound. "So," Franklin said finally, trying to laugh, guess we're supposed to follow him?" Nobody answered. The farmhouse loomed ahead, tall and crooked, its roof line sagging like a broken spine. The windows were black, no lanterns, no floodlights, nothing to suggest a haunted hayride attraction. "Okay," Zane said, swallowing hard. "This is the main event. Gotta be." "Looks condemned," Anne muttered. "Perfect set dressing," Franklin grinned, but even he didn't sound convinced. The five of them pushed through the overgrown yard. Dead leaves crunched underfoot. The dolls rattled faintly on the fence behind them, a sound that followed like whispers. Sloane was the last to step up the porch. Her hand brushed the railing. It flaked away under her fingers, black wood crumbling like ash. She shivered. Drake kept his camcorder up, the whir of the tape spinning loud in the silence. "This place is insane," he whispered. "You guys, this is movie level." Zane pushed the door. It groaned open, the smell hitting them in a wave, rot, damp wood, and something coppery beneath it all. Inside, the air was heavy, wallpaper peeled in long curls. The floorboards bent under their weight. Dust motes swirled in the red light that seeped through the cracked windows. "See," Franklin said, forcing a smirk. "Total set design. They nailed it." Then his foot nudged something. A shirt torn dark with dried stains, real stains. He froze. Sloane bent down, hesitant. "That's blood." Her voice trembled. "Paint!" Zane snapped too quickly. "It's paint!" But nobody moved. The silence of the house pressed down, thick as the smell. From upstairs came a sound. A dragging, heavy step. Another, then the groan of floorboards, slow and deliberate. The five froze in place, staring up the staircase, swallowed in shadow. "Actors," Franklin whispered, "just actors." But even as he said it, the camcorder light flickered across the banister, and there, in the dust, were clawed hoofprints burned deep into the wood. The steps above them stopped. Silence. Anne clutched Sloane's hand. And then a snort, wet, animal, rolling through the house. The friends scattered, panic surging. Franklin dove behind a torn couch. Anne and Sloane bolted for a closet. Drake pulled Zane toward the stairs. The house seemed alive, each door groaning, each floorboard shrieking underfoot. The smell grew stronger, suffocating. In the dark of the closet, Anne clamped a hand over her mouth. Sloane's breath came fast and shallow beside her. Through the slats of the door, they saw a shadow swell across the floor. Boots, heavy, dragging, a cleaver scraping the wood. The Pigman sniffed at the air. Slowly, its head turned. The snout inched toward the closet door. Anne bit her lip so hard she tasted blood. Sloane trembled, staring at the thin line of light beneath the door, watching as it went black. The creature stopped, breathing, listening. Then it moved on. The two girls exhaled shakily, clutching each other, while upstairs came another noise, louder this time. Something waiting, something bigger. They burst out the back door of the farmhouse, stumbling into the open yard, lungs burning with the stench of rot still clinging to them. The red sky pressed low, heavy and endless, making the world feel sealed in. "Jesus Christ," Anne gasped, clutching Sloane's arm. "That wasn't none of that." "Actors," Franklin barked, his voice cracking. "That's what it is. It's a setup. They want us scared." But even he didn't sound like he believed it anymore. Drake panted, still clutching his camcorder like it could save him. "Where's the wagon? The hayride? There's gotta be a wagon." "There," Zane pointed, and they saw it. The dark shape of a barn at the edge of the corn, massive, weather-beaten, its doors hanging crooked. Lantern light flickered faintly from inside. They ran. The barn swallowed them whole, the air colder inside than it had any right to be. Moonlight, or whatever passed for moonlight under the blood-colored sky, filtered through broken slats, cutting pale beams across the dirt floor. The smell was worse here, sweet, rotting hay, something metallic under it. "Where are the wagons?" Sloane whispered. Then her eyes adjusted. The rafters. Dolls. Hundreds of them, strung by wires, hanging from the beams. Their little legs dangled limp, some heads missing, some split open, stuffing spilling out. They swayed with the draft, clicking against each other. "Oh my God," Anne whispered, voice breaking. That's Franklin's laugh cracked. That's brilliant set design, creepy as hell. But then one of the dolls twitched, not from the wind. A small hand moved. "Tell me you saw that," Sloane hissed, backing up into Anne. The sound of hooves dragged across the dirt. They spun. A Goatman stepped into the light, lantern hanging low, horns catching the glow. Its head twitched unnaturally as it sniffed the air. Zane shoved them toward the ladder leaning against the wall. "Up, go!" They scrambled, climbing into the rafters, crouching among the swaying dolls. Drake clutched his camcorder against his chest, recording without realizing, the tape whirring loud enough it felt like it would give them away. The Goatman prowled below. It tilted its head back, sniffing, bleeding low. The dolls knocked against each other, some turning as if to watch. Anne pressed her face into Sloane's shoulder, trying not to sob. Franklin gripped the beam so tight his knuckles bled. The Goatman stopped. Slowly, its head tilted upward, empty black sockets fixed on the rafters. It opened its mouth and bleated. The sound was wrong, torn and human somewhere beneath it. The dolls swayed harder. And from outside, the corn split open with wet, heavy snorts. More were coming. The barn door exploded open as they bolted into the night, dolls rattling behind them, the Goatman's bleat still echoing in their skulls. The cold air hit hard, damp with the smell of soil and blood. "Run!" Zane shouted, shoving Franklin ahead. "Into the corn! Go!" They plunged into the field, stalks whipping against their faces, leaves slicing their skin like paper. The world vanished into rustling walls, endless, suffocating. Drake's camcorder swung wildly from his hand, the red wreck light bobbing in the dark. His breath rasped into the mic, sharp, panicked. Behind them, snorts, heavy, too many. The corn split in waves as though boars the size of men crashed through unseen. "Left!" Franklin gasped, veering. The others followed, stalks clawing their clothes. But when they burst into a clearing, their stomachs dropped. The dolls again, hanging from a wire strung between the stalks, dozens, their limbs torn, their painted faces melted from fire. "Jesus Christ," Sloane sobbed, clutching Anne. "We're going in circles." No, we just..." Zane spun, searching for any gap that looked different, his own voice breaking. "We just took the wrong..." A lantern bobbed in the dark. Anne froze, pointing. "There!" The light swayed gently, maybe 50 feet away, tucked deeper in the stalks. "Actors," Franklin whispered hoarsely like a prayer. "It's just actors." The lantern lifted higher, illuminating horns. A Goatman stood there, its wool-matted chest rising, black sockets staring. It bleated, guttural and human, and the corn behind them came alive with answering snorts. They ran again, stumbling, clawing through, stalks snapping underfoot. Every turn felt the same. Every path led back to more dolls, more whispers. Drake tripped, his camcorder skidding into the dirt. Zane hauled him up, the tape light blinking in the soil. Then silence. The snorts stopped, the rustling hushed. The five froze, panting, eyes darting. "Why did they stop?" Anne whispered. A laugh, low, wet, animal, rolled through the stalks. Then the corn behind them parted, not from one place but all around, stalks breaking, bending. Lanterns ignited, one after another, bobbing through the red dusk. Pigmen, Goatmen, closing in. "Back!" Zane hissed, pulling them toward the only direction left, toward the looming shadow of the farmhouse. They crashed through the stalks, desperate, until the rotting shape of the house rose ahead, windows black, door yawning open like a mouth. There was nowhere else left to run. The farmhouse door slammed behind them, shutting out the lanterns and the corn. Their chests heaved, skin slick with sweat and dust, but the silence inside was worse than the hunt outside. Zane grabbed Franklin's arm. "Down. We hide in the basement. They won't..." He didn't finish, didn't need to. The pounding boots on the porch said enough. They rushed down a narrow stairwell, wood groaning beneath their weight. The air grew colder, damper, the smell rising thick and metallic. The basement opened wide, low ceiling, dirt floor. Shadows clung to the corners, and everywhere. Dolls. Not strung along fences this time, piled, rows of them lining crude wooden shelves, their plastic limbs melted, their glassy eyes gouged. Some were stitched together with twine, others pinned into the dirt by rusted nails. Anne gagged, clutching her stomach. "Oh my God." Drake's camcorder light swung over a table, strewn with tiny doll heads, each one carved open and stuffed with scraps of human hair. Franklin staggered back. This isn't props. This is..." "Vessels," Sloane whispered. She didn't know why she said it, but the words slid out heavy. "They're vessels." The air pressed in thick as syrup. A faint whisper rose, impossible to place. The dolls, their mouths didn't move, but the sound hummed through the basement like breath. Zane's light caught the far wall. Masks. Dozens of them, not rubber, not latex. Human skin, stretched and tacked flat against wood. Faces frozen mid-scream, hollow sockets staring. Some old and shriveled, others still fresh enough to glisten. The Pigman, the Goatman. Drake dropped his camcorder, the whir of the tape cutting off. His voice cracked. "They're not masks. They're not masks at all." Above them, the floorboards groaned. Hooves scraped the wood, pacing. One of the dolls fell from the shelf, hitting the dirt with a hollow thunk. Then another and another. The shelves shook, dolls spilling, their painted mouths wide, eyes fixed on the 5 intruders. The whispers grew louder, chanting now. Zane pressed back against the wall, shaking his head. We need to get out. We can't." From the top of the stairs, a lantern flared, and the Goatman began to descend. The Goatman's lantern swayed on the stairs, each creak of the step echoing like a death knell. The 5 pressed against the far wall, shadows clinging to them, breath ragged. We can't stay here," Anne whispered. "We'll suffocate." "There's another way out," Zane said quickly, eyes darting across the dirt walls. "Basements always have back doors, cellar doors, something." They fanned out, whispering frantic, fingers clawing at shadows. Sloane's nails scraped rotten wood. Franklin shoved at shelves of dolls that toppled and whispered louder as they fell. Drake stumbled over a pile of bones, femurs, ribs. The camera light washed across them, showing gnaw marks deep and deliberate. His breath hitched. "They eat them," he whispered. They turn them." The Goatman paused on the stairwell, tilting its head like it could hear every beat of their hearts. "Here," Zane hissed suddenly, pulling at a rotted trapdoor sunken into the dirt. He yanked, grunting, veins straining. "Help me." They rushed to him. Sloane, Anne, even Drake grabbed at the iron ring, heaving. The wood cracked, dirt raining down. The trapdoor began to lift, foul air spilling out. Then Franklin stepped back, his face pale, his eyes shining in the lantern glow, but steady in a way that froze them all. "Stop," he whispered. Zane blinked, teeth clenched. "Franklin, what the hell are you?" "They don't want all of us." His voice was hollow, measured. "Just enough every harvest, every Halloween. I heard it. The dolls, they told me." Anne's mouth opened in shock. You're not serious." Franklin's jaw trembled, but his grip tightened on the cleaver he'd picked up from the dirt. "If I give them you, maybe I walk away." Silence collapsed between them. "Franklin," Sloane's voice broke. "Don't do this. Don't." The Goatman's lantern bobbed lower, the snorts of Pigman rumbling just above. Zane lunged at Franklin, but Franklin swung the cleaver, not at the creatures, but at the trapdoor. The wood splintered, slamming it shut. "They'll let me live," he whispered, more to himself than them. "They always let one live." The dolls on the shelves began to laugh, shrill and broken. The Goatman stepped into the basement, lantern light spilling wide, horns scraping the ceiling. And Franklin didn't move. The Goatman's lantern light carved the basement in blood-orange glow, throwing the dolls into leering silhouettes. Franklin stood frozen at its side, the cleaver dangling at his hip, eyes wide but unblinking, as if he'd already surrendered his soul. "Franklin," Anne whispered, voice raw. "Please." But the Pigmen thundered down the stairs behind, filling the air with wet snorts, cleavers scraping walls. Zane shoved Sloane and Anne behind him, fists clenched. "We fight, no choice." Drake scrambled for his camcorder, clutching it like a weapon, though it was nothing more than plastic and tape. The red light blinked, capturing every second. The Goatman stepped forward, horns scraping the ceiling, bleat tearing through the basement walls. The dolls answered with a chorus of shrill giggles, their whispers rising into chant. The Pigmen lunged. Zane swung a broken beam like a bat, splintering it across a snout. Sloane grabbed rusted tools off the workbench, jabbing wildly. Anne screamed, slashing with jagged glass. The air turned thick with dirt, blood, and the stench of rot. But there were too many. For every swing, another shadow loomed, another cleaver raised. Drake's camcorder dropped, still recording, lens pointed up at the chaos. Through the static hiss of the tape, a warped voice bled out, chanting in sync with the dolls. "Harvest, harvest, harvest." Zane slammed into Franklin, rage pouring out. "You did this! You sold us out!" Franklin's mouth trembled, tears streaking his face, but he didn't fight back. He only whispered, "One always lives." The Goatman raised its lantern higher. The light flared unnaturally, spilling up the walls, searing into the very foundation. The dolls' eyes glowed, hundreds of them watching. Anne stumbled toward the trap door again, slamming her fists against it, screaming for it to open. Sloane dragged her back as cleavers crashed into the dirt where she'd stood. Zane roared, swinging again, but a Pigman caught his arm and yanked him off his feet. For a moment, it looked like the end. And then, silence. Every creature froze, lanterns held still, snorts cut short. The dolls' chanting ended mid-breath. Franklin stepped forward into the center of the room, shoulders shaking. He dropped the cleaver. "Take me," he whispered. "Take me instead." The Goatman bent low, horns shadowing Franklin's face. Its lantern flames swelled, drowning the basement in light. The others shielded their eyes. When they looked again, Franklin was gone. Only the cleaver lay on the dirt. The Pigman and Goatmen turned in unison. They backed up the stairs slowly, lanterns flickering, until the basement was empty, but for the four. Empty, but not safe. The dolls still stared, the whispers still hummed, and the trapdoor rattled as if something worse waited on the other side. Drake lifted his camcorder with shaking hands, pointing it at the others. The red light blinked. His voice cracked through the static. "Did we survive?" Nobody answered. Outside, the corn rustled. Lanterns bobbed again. The harvest wasn't over. Some say the farm was just a rumor, a haunted hayride that never really existed, a story passed around in whispers during the Halloween season. But others, they swear if you drive far enough down the back roads beneath a sky that burns red, you'll find the fence lined with dolls. Their hollow eyes will follow you, daring you to step inside. And if you do, you'll hear them. The snorts, the bleats, the chant that rises from the corn. Because the harvest isn't finished. And it never will be.